So I've told you guys before, I love following these earnings calls. I eat them up because we not just find out like the nitty gritty finance details, which I love, but we also get to hear some of the rumblings and insinuations as to what they're working on next. They've done an earnings. So they've did the earnings call. They announced and disclosed how much money they brought in, how many copies they sold. For example, they had 30 million copies sold as of November 2024 of Cyberpunk, 8 million copies of the Phantom Liberty expansion as well. They took in over $100 million in profit, pure profit, which is crazy. They're just rocking and rolling. I mean, I think it marks the most successful quarter without a release in company history. They just are seeing huge returns on these investments. And it goes to show you, when you polish up and fix the game that people were interested in and that was kind of rushed out, but you make it what you promised, and then you deliver a phenomenal expansion, people will reward you by buying it. It's crazy. Imagine that. Cammy did a little summarization. Witcher 4 is in full production. Project Orion, which is the sequel to Cyberpunk, and Witcher 1 Remake are in the concept stages. So I was hoping that the Witcher 1 Remake would be further along. It appears they're not. The remake is being done by the team that did the Thaumaturge, which is a really interesting kind of a top-down isometric. I don't think it's technically isometric, but it's a top-down RPG that's actually pretty interesting and unique. But it's still in the concept stages, so it's still very early. But we got some specific numbers of employees working on it. Now, they show, for example, how many people were working on each project in October versus end of February. End of October, there were 400 people working on The Witcher 4. That went up to 411 in just a few months. Orion got 20 more people added to it. Project Sirius also got more people working on it. Project Hadar got, some people shuffled around. Shared services got shifted around, and then other projects, there's a few people. But you can see they've added another 57 employees on these projects. One of the other things they announced, they are partnering with the behemoth Scopely for a game based on their IP. If you don't know Scopely, these are like the guys that print money with mobile games. All of those games, like WWE Champions, for example, Scopely makes them. They print money. So they're probably going to do, I don't know if it's going to be a Gwent thing or if it's going to be some Cyberpunk specific game. Who knows? But they've partnered with them, and I can understand why. I mean, clearly Scopely knows how to print money with their mobile games, but I just personally think that Scopely tends to be a little bit predatory with how they do it. That's just me, but they've partnered with them. And beyond this, there are some other little tidbits. So for example, Cyberpunk 2077, hit those targets. Cyberpunk 2077 platform splits for 2024 were 62% on on PC. 26% are on PlayStation and 12% are on Xbox. 62% of players on PC. I think that this is, though, something that we're seeing more and more, is that the PC market for a while was seen kind of as this more niche thing. And now it's clear a lot of companies are starting to shift and view it as, no, that's probably the future. Like, a lot of people are growing out of consoles and moving towards PCs, especially as like fidelity keeps getting cranked and people are kind of committing more to the gaming hobby and they're investing more money into it. Console, it's growing. Consoles are growing, but the PC market is growing way faster. And as you all know, I've said a bajillion times, in finance with companies and corporations in general, growth is literally like the lifeblood that drives the dreams of champions. Okay. If you get that reference, put it in chat right now and we'll be best friends forever. Growth is what makes the numbers grow. Growth is what makes the numbers bigger. It's what keeps investors happy. And if you have growth, everything else kind of should, in theory, follow in line and keep on the right trajectory. When you see growth stagnate, you see the market plummet, because investors are buying in now with the hopes of bigger returns in the future. And if your market isn't growing, you either have to expand like your margins so that you get a bigger amount of profit on each dollar that it costs you to produce the product. Or, I mean, you got to find some other way of increasing how much money you're making, because nobody's really happy with a company that makes $100 this year, makes $100 next year, and $100 the year after that. Nobody really wants that. They want $100 this year, 110 next year, 120 next year. They need that to go up. And unless you have overall market growth, you have to find other ways of doing it, like, trying to squeeze blood from a rock. You got to find other ways to squeeze your customers dry. But by expanding and focusing on PC market share on the part of third-party developers and publishers like CDPR or PlayStation, Xbox, I mean, that's a great way to do it, because for a long time they haven't really done that. But why can't they just make normal profit of a steady company? So there are some companies that do just kind of do the same thing year after year, and they don't really grow a ton. They're primarily like utilities companies that transport electricity, do water servicing, waste management, things like that. They don't really expand that much. They do technically grow, but they're not anywhere near as much as like tech. With like Nvidia, the reason Nvidia is valued so much is because the promise of growth is there. They're saying, oh no, in 10 years, AI is going to be even bigger. So we're going to be making even more chips. We're going to be bringing in even more hundreds of billions of dollars. So you get in now, you're going to get a piece of that growth. So there are companies that do it, that do just kind of stay on the flat, very slow and steady wins the race trajectory. They just don't tend to be valued super crazy high, because there's not the promise of future growth. There's a place for that. But I do think video games are a high growth market. They've been skyrocketing in popularity. It's much more normalized now to play video games compared to even like 20 years ago when you were seen as like a dork and a nerd. Oh, you're playing video games, But it's very interesting to see how all of these companies are now trying to find where the next area of growth is. Where they're going now, I think they are focused on the PC market, and you're going to see them trying to double down on like cloud infrastructure, stuff like that, subscription services and all that. But anyway, Michael, who is the co-CEO or joint CEO, I guess is the technical term, he went through a brief summary of their outlook and what they've got. So you can see in 2024, the consolidated sales revenues of CD Projekt Group reached 985 PLN, with nearly 470 PLN in net profit, which means that the group's net profitability during this period was approximately 48%, which is crazy. Both of our franchises wrapped up an excellent year. Naturally, the results of CD Projekt Group are primarily driven by the sales of Cyberpunk, the base game, along with its Phantom Liberty expansion. It generated nearly 600 million PLN in earnings. For its part, The Witcher 3, despite 10 years having passed since its release, continues to attract attention and produces a stable revenue stream. We are very satisfied with the fact, even in the absence of any major launch, the past year was the third best in the group's history in terms of net profit. They didn't release anything major, and yet it is the third best year in terms of profit for the company. That's crazy. In November, cumulative sales of Cyberpunk topped 30 million copies, while the Phantom Liberty expansion had sold over 8 million copies. In the past year, Cyberpunk 2077 also received numerous awards, including a prestigious BAFTA award in the Best Evolving Game category, presented to games with exceptional post-release support by the dev team. This year, Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition will appear on Mac OS. Wow. There's no way it runs super well, right? Like, it's got to run at like medium low settings at 30 frames. I've tried playing games on like my MacBook Pro, and it's like, I think Baldur's Gate 3 is on there, and I've tried playing it on there. It's not quite there. And I think it's such a miss. Like Apple, if they really focused on it and made it a priority, I think, it could really help them. Because one of the primary reasons I see like younger people around my age not buying Macs is because they want to play games, and they can't play those games on Mac, or at least not well. So they go PC instead. I think if they put effort into supporting games on Mac, like a lot more effort, I think it could really like be a slam dunk for them. But anyway, allowing us to reach a new group of gamers and further expand the Night City community. We're also working to expand the Cyberpunk universe. In 2024, we announced a new animation project, which is currently under development and which will be released on Netflix. And that's just some of what we have in store. In late 2024, CD Projekt Red entered a new phase of development on the first installment in the new Witcher saga. I'm excited. In November, The Witcher 4, previously known as Project Polaris, entered full-scale production. Its cinematic trailer, unveiled at the Game Awards in December, met with enthusiastic reception on the part of gamers. The upcoming release dominated global media headlines, with particular attention devoted to Ciri, who had been revealed as the new main protagonist. The new main. Maybe this is just a translation thing, or maybe I'm reading into it. New main protagonist makes me think there's multiple protagonists and she's the main one. Maybe they just mean the new protagonist, but that makes me think there might be, it might just be a translation thing. You got to be careful with these things because, I saw a TikTok of a lady that was like what English would sound like if it were structured like French. And so she just translated stuff from French directly to English, but didn't move the words around. And dude, it was confusing as hell. All of you French speakers out there, I'm so sorry. It's got to be tough to decipher that stuff because all the words are like not in the order you would think. It's very confusing. I'm sure they say the same thing about English, but yeah, sometimes with translations, you can get into trouble. The group's strong financial performance means that despite record expenditures on development projects and 100 million PLN dividend, the group's balance of financial reserves increased by over 160 million PLN over the last year, which is fantastic. That's fantastic. Oh, and look, I found a virgin. I found one in the wild. Wow. That's crazy. Who'd have thunk it? I've learned the one thing that totally disarms and really pisses off like those types is calling them virgins. They lose it, dude. It's quite funny. It's quite funny. And it's pretty funny. So continuing on with this, somewhat as expected, Last Known Meal took this screenshot. CDPR confirmed that The Witcher 4 will come out after 2026. My guess would be late 2027, maybe even pushing into 2028, especially if we align it with their net profit goals. But so far, this is just speculation, nothing else concrete after it was said. They basically, show their projections for what they expect to book, what they expect to bring in. This is why we knew for a long time that like GTA 6 was coming in this period, because they were like, yeah, we're going to bring in $2 extra billion. You know why. He took my thing.